Introduction. Miniature photography is a creative technique where a real-life object and scene are photographed to appear tiny like a miniature models. It uses clever camera angles, lighting, pros, and post-processing to create a mini world illusion. Commonly used in advertising, art, and social media to create eye-catching and imaginative image. Key characteristic scale manipulation, making normal object look tiny. Perspective press, low angle, and focus on create a depth. Creative storytelling, everyday scene turn into a tiny adventure.
This part I will talk about the style and the key elements that we can create a miniature photography. The first one is the composition. This is how the things are arranged in the photo. A careful arrangement of the miniature subjects can create a strong visual style. The second one is scale. The scale means the size of the objects in the scenes. In miniature photography, we make the objects and the figures correctly and make the small things look like the real big ones. The number three is perspective. Shooting angle that enhance the realism and depth can make the picture look like more realistic. The number four is lighting. Using the shadows, highlights, and the direction can add the mood and dimension in photo. Number five is props. The props is supporting elements that build a real miniature environment. They help to tell a story in the photo. The number six is creative use of the daily objects. We can transforming the everyday items to build the imaginative miniature scenes, like the broccoli can become the tree, the oil can become a piano, and so on.
Okay, I'm going to talk about case study. Case study for miniature life photography is to showcase about the art, including technical skill, creative vision, and problem solving. This case study used to illustrate different techniques such as tilt shift, the aroma effect, and using miniature model to create realistic. For example, the picture number one, subject a miniature jungle with a human figure standing and taking a picture of the surrounding. The broccoli is used as the tree. The goal of this photography is to create a realistic jungle environment and demonstrate how miniature photography capture detail through the tilt shift technique, effectively creating the illusion of a deep jungle scene. And example picture 2, a miniature gym with a human figure doing a heavy lifting, using eggplant as the dumbbell and the cutting board as the stage of the weightlifting. Goal to create a realistic weightlifting scene and demonstrate how miniature photographer capture detail through the suitable technique to create realistic and fun photo.
Okay, so for now we're talking about the shooting and post-processing workflow for a miniature photography. Where this photography we have two kind of setup, which is the miniature setup and also the real life setup. For these two setup, they have the same point for shooting, which is it needed to be shoot from a high angle. And for what is a miniature setup? Miniature setup is using a small object or a miniature object with a real life object together to shoot a miniature photograph. And for the real life setup, we have differentiate two types, which is the tilt shift photograph or the post progress photograph. For the tilt shift photograph, it is using a real scenario by editing after that or using a special lens which is called tilt shift lens for photograph a miniature view. And for post progress photograph, it is combining a few picture from a big object and a small scenario, which is a miniature view, combining together to become a miniature photograph. Next, for the shooting setup, the most important one is the camera, where we use to shoot the photograph, and also macro lens is also important for shooting the miniature object. Tripod, light box, lights and backdrop is optional where tripod is for stabilizing the camera. Light box and light and backdrop is more on when we shoot in the studio. So for the post-processing workflow in Photoshop, sharpen details is needed for editing, where we need to use sharpness adjustment, lens blur, and the second one is control depth of field, where we need to blur and also focus the photograph, where you can see the other side. Here we have the miniature photo. We have the up and bottom be blurred and focusing on the center only. So the tools needed is focus tool and also the funky focus. So for the third one is adjust exposure, contrast and saturation. To make the photograph better, you need to adjust the exposure and contrast, saturation and also maybe in the black point. So other editing tool is cropping, where we need to use is when need to crop an object to another photo. It's like from one photo cropping an object to another photo combined together to make it look like a miniature photograph.
So, in conclusion, miniature photography refers to the visual expression that contrasts into creative photography by using clever camera angles, lighting, props, and post-processing. It also based on objects and scenes in daily life, combined with miniature vehicles or models to present humorous, interesting, product, and emotional pictures. For example, use of as a slide and the determinant slides down on it. The second example is use the toe base as a ski slope and let the determinant ski on it. And the last example is there is a determinant washing fig standing next to the coffee cup and the coffee is like a hot spring. So that's all. Thank you.